Today, use the chat. There it is. And so we go ahead and use the chat box today to, you know, communicate with the presenters, communicate with me. There is closed captioning available should you need it. And all of our slides are available with closed captioning. And it is recorded. So you'll get a copy of this. For anyone who's participating today, you'll get that record and the slide deck. So you could print it off, use it, share it with your team. If you have questions, feel free to follow up with us. We'll make sure to clarify anything that you might have during this webinar or as TAs as well. All right, Andy, next slide, please. All right, welcome, motivating and incentivizing youth toward their goals in youth healing and wellness courts for youth with high risk and high needs. Today is August 28th, 2025. I can't believe it, but welcome everyone. And all right, go ahead, next slide, please. Before we get started, this project was supported by this grant number shown here, awarded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, Office of Justice Programs, U.S. Department of Justice. The opinions, findings, and conclusions or recommendations expressed in this publication or exhibition of this webinar are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect those of the Department of Justice. So you could learn more about our funding streams and our programs by visiting tribalyouth.org. Now I have the great honor to introduce our presenters. Judge Pat, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pat Sikyakwaptiwa. You can call me Pat or Judge Pat. You don't have to say my whole long Hopi last name. I am the training and technical assistance team lead for the Youth Healing to Wellness Courts. And let me introduce you to my co-presenter who graciously stepped in when Chris Pacheco could no longer make it. This is Chris Questis. Chris, please introduce yourself.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Questis. I'm a consultant with the Youth Healing and Wellness Court. I'm a technical assistant, and I have a number of grantees, and including some of you that are here. And I look forward to this afternoon, and this is going to be a really comprehensive and excellent presentation. So welcome.
And again, my name is Ashley Anderson. I'm also a training and technical assistance specialist with the Youth Healing Wellness Court team at Tribal Youth Resource Center. I'm a tribal ally. I lived in Alaska for some years, and I've learned so much from everyone. I also realized I spelled my name on my slide here incorrectly, but hey, we're all here. And also for tech support, Andy Dickerson. She's here moderating, doing some of the tech stuff behind the scenes. So if you need any one of us, please reach out, use the chat box, and let us know if you're having any technical difficulties. We are the Tribal Law and Policy Institute. We are dedicated to providing free publication resources, comprehensive training, and technical assistance for Native nations and tribal justice systems in pursuit of our vision to empower Native communities to create and control their own institutions for the benefit of all community members now and for future generations. You can learn more about our programs by visiting home.tlpi.org, one of which is the Tribal Youth Resource Center. In the Tribal Youth Resource Center, we envision a future where Indigenous youth thrive through traditional lifeways, enhancing the opportunities for Indigenous communities to expand their potential in protecting and nurturing their most sacred asset, the youth. Again, you could find more about our resources, publications, funding streams, as well as just who we are as TAs by visiting tribalyouth.org. All right, I'll hand it over to Judge Pat, and I'm here if you need me, but I'm turning off my camera.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. So first I should welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. And I also wanted to acknowledge that this is a public webinar. Usually we're just with our Youth Healing to Wellness Court grantees, and I see many of you have signed on, and I'm so glad you're here. And I'd also like to welcome all the folks who are not current grantees under OJJDP, but maybe in the future, or maybe you're working with tribes who are grantees. So today's presentation is really going to cover 4 topics. The first is a little explainer about the Youth Healing to Wellness Court model. It is a type of juvenile drug court, but it's not just a therapeutic justice model, it's also a culturally adapted model. And we'll talk a little bit about how the model works very briefly to give us enough information to understand the incentive material that we're talking about today. The second thing we're going to talk about is how important it is to tie incentives or motivators to goals. It's really important that youth are engaged in some kind of goal setting process when they're in the Youth Healing to Wellness Court, and that the rewards that we give them are helping them progress toward their goals. The third thing we'll talk about is an incentives and sanctions protocol, or an IS protocol. What on earth is that? What does it look like? And then finally, we'll talk about the debates of applying this kind of model in Indian country, in rural places, and then adapting the model culturally. All right, so that's our 1 through 4 here. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, let's start with the Healing to Wellness Court model. I just would like to say, first of all, that the original juvenile drug court model was designed for a certain group of youth, and they call them high risk, high need youth. And the kind of risk they're talking about is called criminogenic risk. This is the risk that a young person who is already court involved with a tribal court or a county court, that they'll remain court involved, or they'll be court involved again. And so this model was designed to work with that population of youth who also have a substance use issue. And it's designed to be more therapeutic than punitive in the adversarial system. So kind of hold that at the back of your head. That's the group of youth we're working with. This is a specific kind of court intervention, but it's also interdisciplinary. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so I'm just going to give you like a really quick summary of what the Youth Healing to Wellness Court looks like here in the next 2 slides. On this slide, I just want to point out, you'll notice those blue boxes across the top. Those are your typical tribal court dockets. So you might have your criminal cases you see on the 3rd blue box. You might have your juvenile delinquency cases on the 1st blue box. Looks kind of like the state court system. It's an adversarial process. These new Youth Healing to Wellness courts are a new kind of court docket. And you can see they're represented here by the blue triangle. It's really important to notice this, that we're creating a new kind of court process that is therapeutic and cultural. It's not like the old adversarial process with the rules of evidence and like what you see on TV in Law and Order. That is not this. So keep the blue rectangle in your mind. And if I have any judges on the call, you might be thinking, oh, well, that will require a code revision. And you are probably right. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so what the heck is that blue rectangle? This is the guts of the blue rectangle here, otherwise known as the tribal key components for a Healing to Wellness court. And there's a certain process in these therapeutic court dockets that includes all these blue boxes going around the circle here. For example, in a wellness court, you have case management. You have somebody who's managing a case plan for youth. There's random drug testing and alcohol testing. There's probably phases that the youth is moving through over a number of months. There are probably weekly status hearings, and before each hearing, there's a team meeting to go over that youth's progress before the hearing. And then in this process, incentives and sanctions are given out to keep that young person progressing on both on their case plan and moving through the phases in a Youth Healing to Wellness court. And before I look at the arrows, notice on the left-hand side here, there's a yellow box. This is all the tribal tailoring the requirements that a youth engages in a healing to wellness court, or could, depending on how you design it. So, for example, you might have tribal history classes or tribal skills building, subsistence, gathering, hunting, fishing, arts. There might be tribally adapted evidence-based treatment. There might be support groups that are tribally focused, or whatever it is your community feels fits in the yellow box as part of the requirements of a wellness court. Okay, now what parts of this process involve incentives and sanctions? It's arrows 1, 2, 3, and 4. So sort of put this in the back of your mind. Case management is very important to a good incentive protocol. The weekly team meetings, the interdisciplinary team meetings, are very important. The weekly status hearings in a wellness court are important, and any follow-up meetings with the case manager. And so these are the arrows in our wellness court process where we think about incentives and sanctions. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So if there is nothing else that we remember from today, it's this. To make incentives work, the youth must have initially developed goals. Someone had to sit down with that young person and figure out, what are your goals while you're in the wellness court? And what are your goals in life? And help them to start processing that information. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, lots of talking here. I'm going to hand it off to Chris, and he's going to run us through some polling questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Judge P. We're going to start with a polling question number 1. Of course, your input is going to be anonymous. We love hearing from our colleagues. We also love hearing from our attendees on not only just what you're working on, but what you see happening in your region, and also how you're implementing components and strategies within your localized program. So we're going to start with this first polling question. So if we can pull it up. Case management. What is the purpose of case management in a youth healing to wellness court? You can select one or more. Of course, it's a multiple choice, or in some instances, multiple guess. Number 1 is to clinically assess youth for substance use or mental health treatment. Second one is to assess a youth's holistic needs. The third response is to undertake risk need responsivity assessments as part of case planning. And the last response is to monitor compliance with the judge's order of probation. So take a look at them and answer accordingly, and your responses will come up, and then we may be able to dialogue a little bit about it.
Chris, we have about 65% of people who've been able to respond, so I'll give everyone just a little bit more time.
Okay, that's fine. And what we're looking for, of course, is responses based upon the case management concepts in a youth healing and wellness court. You may be able to respond. Also, keep in mind that you can still respond to us in the chat if there's some specificity that you're looking for. Okay, let's go ahead and look at our responses. So, case management. What is the purpose of case management in the youth healing and wellness court? The first response, to clinically assess youth for substance use or mental health treatment, we got 39% of our respondents indicated that is the purpose. To assess a youth's holistic needs, 74%. undertake risk need responsivity assessments is 71%, and to monitor compliance with the judge's order, 52%. All very good responses, kind of what we're looking for, because yes, these are all pieces of the purpose of case management within youth healing and wellness. And what we like is that we like the opportunity to have that diversity when we're working with our youth, because it's individualized care. It's not going to be a cookie cutter response in case management. So thank you for your responses, and we'll move on to our next slide.
Can I jump in, Chris,
So
quick?
go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it was kind of a trick question, right? Because clinicians may be doing treatment plans and treatment planning, and your case manager might not be your clinician. They may be your probation officer, and they may be looking at court orders, or it may be someone who is the coordinator. So the answers might vary on the polling question depending on who is doing the case management. As you can see on the right hand in the pink here on your diagram. Sorry, Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
No problem. So wellness planning begins at step 5 and 6 in youth healing and wellness court. And if you look at on your left-hand side, encased in yellow, step 1 will be referrals. How that's developed and determined is based upon each particular community. Step 2 is legal screening. Eligible offenses under tribal and or local law and violent offender prohibitions. Step number 3 is clinical screening, substance use, mental health. And if you see that little dotted line goes all the way over to the right, that's the youth healing and wellness court coordinator, case manager, and the probation officer. As the legal screening piece would individually be the prosecutor, presenting officer, and the judge. Step 4 would be admission into the youth healing and wellness court. And also look at the response of that clinical assessment. It assesses the clinical assessments undertaken by the licensed professional within your community. Step 5 would be case management and needs assessment. Again, if we follow our dotted line all the way to the right, that would be our case manager, our coordinator, our probation officer, and our wraparound care coordinator. And then, of course, our last step would be youth healing to wellness court probation-based case management, where you would use your risk need and responsivity assessment tool, or if the program or your team decides to use a wraparound case management strategy, that's the child and adolescent needs and strengths cans, and your needs and discovery tools, your SNDs. And then you tailor it tribally. Youth personal balance tool and others for tribal assessment. Remember that goal setting is the central part of case wellness planning and management, but whose goals are they? That's what's really important. These are critical in developing that support and developing the process for your client in youth healing and wellness court. Did you want to say anything, Judge?
Oh, yes, I guess one of the things that's jumped out in the tribal healing to wellness courts is the question of lots of tribes are using wraparound case management as their case management. And it's actually different than drug court case management, which is more probation based. It's a different approach to case management. And in wraparound, one of the values is that you should give the youth voice and choice in how they design their case plans. And this is actually a little bit counter to the probation case planning model where, of course, you may have a court order that requires certain things, or there's still tribal court jurisdiction over a youth while they're in the healing to wellness court. And so that requires some judicial, maybe probation supervision over the youth. And so the question of whose goals are they? Are they court goals? Are they voice and choice? Are they the youth goals? The answer in many healing to wellness courts is both. They're both sets of goals. we could go into a much longer conversation about who your selected population is, but the gist is that youth with high criminogenic risk and need, they need more supervision and they often need court supervision. So there have to be some court goals in the list of goals. So long answer, but important question.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So a co-developed wellness plan. The wellness plan is a roadmap of support, communication between providers, and shows the youth that this is a partnership for success. It launches a youth into a wellness process. A youth healing and wellness case manager co-develops the individualized wellness plan with the youth and their parent participants, a guardian or caregiver. You coordinate treatment and service providers working together and other support services that may be needed or included along the way, and incorporates relevant portions of the treatment goal and plans. So basically, the adolescent doesn't feel like they're on an island trying to navigate this on their own. This is a behavior, it includes a behavior contract with co-developed goals to guide the youth through their participation within the youth healing and wellness court strategy. Thank you. Next one. So, what does the behavior contract look like? Well, it can be as simplistic or as sophisticated as you believe you think you may need for your youth. The behavior contract contains the youth healing and wellness goals as follows. The goals the youth identifies. As Judge Pat indicated, choice, they are very active and involved with what they perceive to be their goals that they want to achieve. Secondly is the goals related to reducing substance use or the goal of abstinence. Goal 3, goals related to improving physical and mental health. And one of the big components we see very often is education, attendance, participation, and or work goals. And it gets them into a normalized cycle within their setting on being healthy. Family goals, reestablishing and connection, developing communications, goals related to community connection and involvement. And this is inclusive of cultural involvement, events, coordinated activities that the tribe is hosting that youth can participate in, and also goals related to building and engaging that support system, expanding an expansion of that net so that they can have reliable resources as opposed to what got them into the situation to begin with. So these are examples of what could be goals that could be pinpointed in your contract with your youth. But the most important issue is that they're involved with it. They're involved with voice and choice, and they see the horizon individually and what they want to accomplish and how they can work towards that, and that this supportive environment is there for them to help them engage. Next slide, please.
Okay, I think this is me. So we had really wanted to do an online learning event about incentives. Like we love incentives in working with the youth healing to wellness courts. It's the fun part of the work we do. But we couldn't do it without talking about the larger framework and the overall protocol. And so that's what we're here to do today, is just to introduce you to the big picture of it. And no doubt you're going to want to know a lot more about the details. So the good news is we have a publication that just got approved for our grantees. And if you ask us after the session, we can send it out to others as well. This document involves the whole protocol, and it's got the forms in it as well. And I put in the chat that we could probably send you a Word version of the document so that you can get the forms out of it. And I will follow up with Ashley and Andy to see if we can get that to everybody today. Okay, so one thing that an effective youth healing to wellness court will have is this protocol. Let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris for a polling question.
Well, how about that? I have an idea. Let's have another polling question. Polling question number 2 with regards to purpose of incentives and sanctions. Poll, please. Okay, incentives and sanctions. What is the purpose of incentives and sanctions? Select one or more, multiple choice / multiple guess. Number 1, to deter youth from committing juvenile offenses and crimes. 2, to modify a youth's behavior. Number 3, to further a youth's identified goals. Number 4, to punish a youth for noncompliance. Number 5, to punish a youth for a positive drug test. And the last one is to support a youth's positive development. Please take a minute, respond to them, and we'll give you the same time frame. We're talking about what is the purpose of incentives and sanctions in our work with our young people in the concept of youth healing and wellness court. And we know that all of you are different in varied stages of your youth healing and wellness court. For those of you that have the youth and healing and wellness court grant, but we understand that. But what we're trying to do is look at what role that the incentives and sanctions can play or may play in the development of your youth healing and wellness court strategy within your community. So how are we doing, Andy?
We have about 83% participation at this point.
Okay, I think we can run with what we have.
Okay.
Okay, here's our responses, ladies and gentlemen. Incentives and sanctions. What is the purpose of incentives and sanctions? To deter youth from committing juvenile offenses and crimes, 49%. To modify youth behavior, 49%. Remember, no wrong answers. To further a youth's identified goals, 43%. To punish a youth for noncompliance, 11%. To punish a youth for a positive drug test, 9%. To support a youth's positive development. Excellent. And that is our most dominant answer. And I can see and I appreciate the concept of let's not use the punishment piece. Let's look more at the carrot as opposed to the inclusion of the stick, because maybe that's not where our youth are at. So we want to use the incentives in a positive way to encourage them. Okay, thank you all. Pat, did you have something you wanted to add on the
Yeah,
poll?
I would just say that over the many years of the Tribal Healing to Wellness course, which is almost 30 years old now, actually, in the beginning, there was a lot more conversation about deterrence and like little punishments with sanctions in drug courts. And over these 3 decades, the research and the approach has shifted, that it really isn't so much about punishment and deterrence. It's about creating support and motivating youth toward their goals. So as you could see, people were generally catching on to that and answering it in the poll.
Do we have anything on the chat, Ashley?
Thank you for asking. A few asked about the publication, and another had asked about, and which I responded about, how do you know how many cases to manage at, a given time? And I've let Jennifer know that I could follow up more with her on that.
Yeah, I know with my grantees, I don't know if anyone else is dealing with this, but with my grantees, they're comfortably able to manage what your response there is between 7 to 10, to where their team can handle those cases, their strategy can manage that, and the courts can add those clients to the docket. So that's an excellent question. Right answer to it, Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Judge Pat.
Okay, back to me. So I have on my slide, go through this one quickly. It's the research part. To me, it's so juicy and interesting. But the message I want you to take away from this slide is that there is a solid research base for using incentives as a method of substance use treatment and in drug courts for adults, adolescents, and American Indians and Alaska Natives. There is actually research on this. And what the research is saying is that it's part of a therapeutic philosophy, not a control philosophy, which is control and punish. What works is the therapeutic philosophy. And the types of therapeutic interventions that seem to be working based on the research are behavioral programs, like behavior contracting, our little goals contract, and cognitive behavioral programs and interventions. Some of you may have heard of like MRT, moral recognition therapy in drug courts. And there are other kinds too. But it's a shift. Um, some unnamed folks and many in the tribal justice system as well may say, why are you giving prizes to juvenile delinquents? Aren't you just rewarding their bad behavior? That's a kind of control philosophy thinking. And it's not research based. It may be coming more from our moral feelings about youth in our communities, and also the old traditional criminal justice approach of deterrence and punishment. Um, Bottom line with youth whose brains are still developing, it doesn't work on them. And there's a lot of research to back that up. So we go to what's working, the therapeutic philosophy. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
We do have a question in the chat,
Oh, we do?
Judge.
Okay, let's
Yeah,
see.
and it's is this in reference to youth who are specifically, or is this more specific to youth that have substance issues with substance use that are specifically delinquent?
So the whole model is designed for youth who have substance use issues and high criminogenic risk, meaning they're court involved or their papers are being filed on them in court, petitions, charges, and they have a substance use issue approaching substance use disorder. So that's a really excellent question. This whole scheme is designed for that subpopulation. Now, we could have a wider conversation about net widening, which is a bad thing. No net widening. We don't want to pull low risk youth into a court system and harm them or pull them into a life circumstance that they would not have otherwise been involved in. They may just be growing up and going through the natural conduct and brain changes that youth go through. And if you leave them alone, they'll grow right out of it. No, you're right. It's a good question. We're only working with a certain subset of youth with this model.
I got a couple more.
Okay.
Jennifer writes, our grant would cover 3 areas, and that's like 6 schools. That's why we're asking with regards to establishing our program. And Jen's got a really good, Jenny, I think is her name, Buckmeyer, really good comment. In my experience, the youth have been and are being punished already, including natural consequences. And I think building trusting relationships with adults that are in the system is huge, is so huge for these kids. We had one of our youth say, it's weird to have so many adults in one space care about me.
Yeah, I think of the Cherokee Nation Youth Healing to Wellness Court when I read that comment. Um, they do, and not only do they like rally to figure out what the kid needs and what they need to progress, but when they graduate from Youth Healing to Wellness Court, they stick with them. Even if they're getting them enrolled in college or maybe helping them with family issues, this team of people is like a additional family, right? Or a substitute family even. And really that's kind of the spirit behind the Healing to Wellness courts is mobilizing an interdisciplinary team to really hone in and help the kids who need it.
And
Okay.
thank everyone for your comments and questions. It shows that we're right on target, right on topic, and we appreciate that. Go ahead, Judge Pete.
Okay, so let me get a little bit further off. Let me get rid of some of this research so we can talk about the juicy stuff. So there's another term for incentives and sanctions, and this is the put on your nerd glasses here. It is called contingency management, CM. Just at the back of your mind, say, oh, we're talking about incentives and sanctions. And as I was saying, it's one of the most extensively researched, best validated interventions in the field of substance abuse treatment. Um, it's based on cognitive behavioral and behavior therapy principles. It has been adapted for juvenile drug treatment courts, and it can be used where your parents are absent or their participation is really low. And I know ideally it's the parents who are working with the kids, and we're helping the parents do that. But we find a lot of our court-involved youth fall in the last bullet here. Their parents are absent or their participation is low. And so the team is having to step in as the extra family. But the priority should be to work with the parents when we can engage them and to keep trying to engage them. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And I think I'm turning this to Chris.
Yeah, that's me. Elements of Youth Healing Wellness Court incentives and sanctions. And I was one of those youth that really pursued incentives because I came to find out in my life that I was I was a tactile learner. So the only way to keep me connected was to provide incentives and keep me motivated to pursue the next goal or the next objective in school. And an effective incentive and sanctions protocol includes a wellness plan with that behavioral contract that we talked about, inclusive of those goals. A checklist for that youth participant so that they can actually visually see their progress. A reward system, identified reward systems, a weekly progress sheet, a weekly staffing report, policies and procedures, including your incentives and sanctions protocol. And then youth, family, and friend descriptions of how the protocol works and what is expected of them in a participant's handbook. And that handbook is really important for young people because they can actually see, where they're going, what's going to be expected of them, and what they can recognize they're going to be engaging in. So remember, incentive and sanctions protocol, you have to have that in place. And it really does help down the road as you're developing your strategy and your program. Next slide.
Okay, so let's talk about the checklist. We needed something tangible for the young person to have while moving through all the requirements and phases of a youth healing to wellness court. So we reached out to our friends in the juvenile drug court world, and we got a copy of the best checklist we could get, and we modified it for our tribal, cultural, rural reality. And that is what is in the publication. And I'm showing you the phase 1 checklist here on the right. There's 4 phases, so there's 4 of these sheets, but I'm only going to show you one for time. So this checklist, as you can see on the right-hand side, the youth is ticking off those boxes like, I attended my meeting with the team. I went to the court sessions required. I met with my case manager, and my goals are, and they write it down. My curfew is, and it's helping them track as they move through the phases. And then just to note, there's certain categories of requirements. So there's requirements about going to court. There's requirements about meeting with your case manager and developing a case plan and goal setting. There's requirements about school and school plans if you need an education plan. Requirements for mentoring, for supervision, like drug and alcohol testing, and for treatment. So remember, if they have a substance use disorder, there's a treatment plan. and it gets portions of it get incorporated into the case plan. So it's a lot to keep track of when you're coordinating services. And this checklist helps youth keep track of it from phase to phase. And it helps everyone who's coordinating services coordinate. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so we're going to switch topics just a little bit here. And I wanted us to think about the difference between a deficit-based approach in court and a strength-based approach in court. And we're reacting to court because where do we put delinquent youth usually? We put them in detention. We send them to court. And now we're asking courts to design a whole new blue rectangle court docket that does it differently with a strength-based approach. And so I wanted to talk about some of the differences between the deficit approach in the squares on the top and the strength-based approach in the blue rectangle on the bottom. Okay, so let's look at the first deficit-based approach here. So as a team, when we're working with youth and the court, do we discuss problems, issues, challenges first before we discuss the good things? Because a strength-based approach would have us discuss their small successes, their strengths, and their positive outcomes first when we're talking about youth in the court system. Another strength-based approach is to look at positive behavior and give tangible incentives to youth for positive behavior, showing up on time, showing up every week, going to school every week. A lot of the good things that kids do, maybe they're showing up 3 times a week for school where they used to only show up once. That is progress. In a deficit-based approach, a lot of good things the kids are doing go unnoticed. And it's the job of the Youth Healing to Wellness Court team to notice. Notice the good things, reward them with tangible incentives. So I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but I want you to see that it's going to take a shift in our thinking if we work with tribal court to use a strength-based approach as part of the Youth Healing to Wellness Court.
We did
Okay.
have a question in the chat, Judge.
Okay,
And the
let's
question
see.
is, can we modify the checklist for each case?
Yes. And I suspect that you would have different kinds of checklists for youth who are in different populations. Like if you had low risk youth who are not court involved, their checklist will look different. If you have high risk youth who are court involved, it's that checklist I showed you. If you have youth who have a lot of mental health issues, but very little court involvement, that's a second checklist. So yes, there are circumstances where you would modify the checklist.
Thank you.
And let me just say one more thing, but there are certain basic requirements of a youth healing to wellness court that apply to everyone in it, like drug and alcohol testing. So that supervision requirement is in all of the checklists. Okay, all except for the low risk kids. There's always a caveat. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I know we're throwing a lot of stuff at you and we don't really expect you to digest all of this in one go, but just kind of get the big picture feel of it. And then we can follow up with the publication and you can read about it and look at the forms and have more questions. Okay, so let's talk about reward systems. There's different kinds, and the simplest, easiest kind of reward system is what they call a program-wide drawing or a fishbowl. And honestly, it's what you already know. You take a ticket, you put it in the bowl, you spin it around, someone pulls out a ticket and says, 27, you win this prize. That is a fishbowl. But the way it works in Youth Healing to Wellness Court is that you're rewarding positive behavior. So you give the ticket form to all the team members in your Youth Healing to Wellness court, and you can give it to the parents and community members too. And it's blank. And every time they notice the kid doing something positive that you want to reward, they write their name on it, they write the behavior, and they give the ticket to the coordinator, and the coordinator puts it in the fishbowl. And then when it's court time or whatever set time you have in your court, they pull the tickets and issue a prize. And so the kid gets a chance to win something. And fish bowls are favored in drug court because it's a budget. It protects the budget. You don't have to give a prize every time somebody does something great, but you give them a chance to win something every time they do something great. And it must be in our human nature to love to gamble because it makes you feel good if you have a chance. So fishbowl is the simple approach. Um, and let's go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Okay, so if you're going to use a fishbowl, there's a couple of recommendations. I think there's 6 here. And let's just walk through how you do it. So first of all, you're going to promote positive behavior that your team is looking for. So you better make a list of what behavior that is. I mean, I can guess off the top of my head, you're going to want them to go to school Monday through Friday. You're going to want them to show up to their treatment appointments. We're going to want them to maybe a longer term goal, a big goal is like graduate from their grade, finish the grade level they're in. And then think of all the baby step behavior that would get them there. Those are the list of positive behaviors you want to reward. The second recommendation is that you want to create opportunities to earn that are available to all youth. So back in the early days of drug court, juvenile drug court, they would say, okay, we're going to reward you if your parents show up to your court hearing. But what's the problem with that? Does every kid have a parent that will show up to court? Do they have a car? What's their relationship with their parent? Do they have a parent? So that's a number 2 problem. You don't want to create opportunities that will only serve a subset of your youth. You want to create opportunities that are available to all of them. And you don't want to penalize them for something they can't control either. And then number 3 is really important. You want to incorporate youth voice into how you develop your reward system. If you're giving out prizes, we almost did this at a training. We were going to have all the folks in the room draw for a prize, and then we were going to make it a pink tutu. And the point is, not everybody wants that prize. Some people will love that prize. Some people, you know, the police officers in the room might not be so happy to win a pink tutu, unless I'm wrong, Chris. That might not be a motivating prize. And that's the point. What do the youth feel motivates them? You should talk to them and find out what prizes they're looking for. What would they really fight for? And, you know, what kind of behaviors would be a good thing to reward? So it's really some common sense here is talk to them. Talk to the teenagers.
That's really a good point, Judge, because we were addressing truancy in Turtle Mountain, North Dakota, and they polled the kids what they wanted most that would enhance school attendance, and it was pajama day. Having the day pajama day, they wanted to see more of that so that they could attend more regularly, which is really interesting. Nobody anticipated pajama day was such a hit.
Ah, yes, sometimes they want an event instead of a
Yep.
thing. Good point. Okay, let's look at the next 3 for the fishbowl. So you want to create kind of some excitement and some visuals, maybe some posters or some decorations, but also that have messages in them as to, these are the things that you could win, and these are the things that you could do to win. And, make it exciting, make it visual. Another recommendation that I think is great is to do a fishbowl for caregivers. Like, who drives them to all of these things as a parent? Other caregivers, they may need something. Give them a gas card, make the prize a gas card. For me, it would be a Starbucks card. I would fight for a Starbucks card. But have another fishbowl for the caregivers and get everybody involved in this incentive process. And then finally, you want to resist the temptation not to give a reward to a youth who has had a bad week. Um, let's say they're in your wellness court over a month, so 4 weeks. And over the course of the 4 weeks, they've been progressing, getting better and better. And the last week, it was bad. They didn't show up for school a couple of days. But overall, they had been progressing. You want to give the reward to a youth who does the thing that you are rewarding. If they did it, they get it. You don't want to turn around and not give them a reward. Remember, if they did it, they get it. So that makes your reinforcement system register in their minds. And also, they did it, so they should get it. Okay. Any questions about fishbowl or comments? This is the easy one. You want to talk about prizes for a minute? Let's go to the next slide. You can put your questions or comments in the chat and Ashley and Chris will catch it. Okay, so prizes. The selection of prizes is fun, and it turns out it's a little bit complicated. But keep in mind that it should work for the age, gender, and culture of the youth in your program. And so this very standard, boring juvenile drug court prize list is just an example of the small, medium, and large prizes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. But this needs to be culturally tailored and also tailored to your youth. So let's look at it here for a second. Express line in court. One prize, a very little prize, could be if they have to go to court, they can leave early. Or maybe they don't have to go to court as a prize. And another kind of prize is that if they're required to do community service, they could get out of it. And the old juvenile drug courts all required community service, like picking up trash on the side of the road kind of community service. And we realized in Indian country that the signals were getting mixed on community service. So the incentive was in the state system, let them get out of community service. That's an incentive, that's a prize. But in Indian country, we had our youth meeting with elders and learning how to, hunt, fish, do arts. And the youth did not see that as a punishment. That seems like an incentive. So the signals were getting mixed or crossed. So in Indian country, if you want community service to be a requirement they don't like so they can get out of it, then you better make community service a chore. And if you want to make helping your elders or learning from your elders, if that is something desirable, that is now an incentive. It's not community service. So think about how this plays out in your community and adjust your system accordingly.
We have a question, Judge,
Yes.
and it's from Donovan, and he says, is there a grant funding source for incentives, or do we go out and seek donations?
So lots of wellness courts go out and seek donations, and they get donations. Actually, you'd be surprised once you describe this to community members will jump in and businesses too. Ashley, do you know off the top of your head if the CTAS Purpose Area 8 lets you purchase incentives?
Yes, you can, as long as you have a designated line item for those incentives. And there's typically a small amount. So consider doing both, using both their grant funding for the larger ones and maybe smaller ones seeking out through foundations or local supports. It'll help it sustain a little bit longer and not, blowing the incentives right away and then not having anything towards the end.
Okay. I wanted to say a little bit more about this, and you can look at the table on the screen, and I'm going to describe some of the research with 3 Native communities and incentives. And you can think about how it's kind of different from what you see on the screen. So there is some research on incentives and reducing or increasing alcohol abstinence with adults. And there were some focus groups done with 3 Native communities. And here's what the Native focus group participants said. They said that if you want to increase the acceptance of contingency management or incentives in Indian country, you need to talk about it this way. Gifting is a cultural value and a practice. It has a deeper meaning. There is a deeper meaning of cultural connection and community. And they gave the example of honor songs at powwows for people in recovery. You have to think about the incentives' deeper meaning to the people in the community. They said that this gifting should reinforce cultural engagement, and it should also incorporate native language. And one of these communities took they had these little tokens, these little red chips that they gave out in a point system, which we'll talk about in a minute. But each chip had a little saying of encouragement stamped on it, and it was in the native language. And it was so cool that they did that. They like turned everything's meaning into something meaningful for their participants. They also said that all reinforcers or incentives should enhance a person's daily living, should support their self-care, and should engage their families and their community, because this is what people needed and wanted. They wanted to be able to enhance their daily living. They needed to do self-care because they'd been ignoring that with substance use, and they wanted to re-engage with their family and community. So there were 3 categories, and I apologize for not having a slide for this because the research, we had to get it approved before this PowerPoint could go out, or after this PowerPoint went out. There's 3 categories: cultural engagement. This one's going to be a no-brainer, I think, to all of you, like beading supplies, beaded items, hosting community events with traditional foods. Each one of our communities has a different kind of set of cultural incentives that we can think of pretty quickly. And then there were material reinforcers, experiential reinforcers, and other reinforcers, different kinds of incentives. Material things were like gas vouchers, transportation, groceries, diapers, tools, work clothes, self-care items like clothes, manicures, pedicures, journals, fragrances. But most helpful, they said, were gift cards to the stores where they have to go buy things they need. And you can think about how this might be different for youth. Okay, 2 more categories here. Experiential reinforcers, things like a family dinner at a restaurant, or an outdoor activity for the family, or a family entertainment activity like going to the movies. And they talked about how these experiential reinforcers should be helping a family, youth and family, engage in activities that would be an alternative to using alcohol. That these incentives should benefit not only the individual person, but the whole family. And that whatever the reinforcer or the incentive was, it should repair the trust damage with the use of alcohol. Okay, last category, I promise. These are other incentives, or we sometimes call them intangible incentives. Things like certificates, daily affirmations, mentoring, and get this one. This was in the focus group. Show respect and acknowledge and recognize the success that the person has made and the healthy choices they made. Give them respect, give them recognition. These were highly desired incentives, and they don't cost money. They just cost attention, right? And paying attention. Okay, I will stop blabbing for a minute and we'll let Chris do a polling question.
Let Chris blab a little bit. So let's expand that a little bit. Let's open it up and have a discussion. We hope you have all your chat access available. So take a moment and let's brainstorm some rewards and prizes for youth that enhance their daily living. Point 2 would be support their self-care. And point 3 is to engage them, to engage their families and their communities. And as you're putting those into the chat, this will be part 1. I can go over a situation. I don't know if any of you know Judge Smith in Lac de Flambeau, when he would have youth come into his chambers during a hearing, he would have them go on family dinners together, and he would also give them a topic that they would discuss. And they would have to come back with the topic and what the outcome of that topic was. And that successful dialogue and communication, it would be added to their file to show success and show the connection and show that they were able to spend some really quality time together. And that ended up being one of the real significant changes that the families, especially the caregivers, parents, and guardians were really encouraged by, is that they were able to dialogue about a topic and be able to bring back some positive feedback. So we do have plant harvesting kits from Christine. From Jennifer, we have gift cards and harvesting kits. Anyone else? Judge P talked about hygiene related items. That's really important. I know that a couple of my grantees really focus on personal individualized hygiene incentives, simply because of the size of the family and situations like that where they actually have their own space. Pajamas for Pajama Day. It's Judge P. Backpacks and bags. Yeah, that's actually one of the most popular giveaways at our conferences. Is we have a vendor that produces the most beautiful cultural backpacks, and we get oohs and ahs every time someone wins one of those. So food baskets, excellent, Timothy. That's an excellent response, because we don't know what their situation is in their home. You know, that the best thing that could have happened for them would be groceries for that week. Pullover sweaters, yes. Excellent, Patty. Missy, do you share vendor information? Yeah, if you want to know who the backpack group is, yeah, just send us an email. We'll let you know who they are. Hoodies and tote bags. We would let the youth come up with an incentive that they wanted. Nice. And to work towards. One such thing was permission to leave the area to travel to an event. And sometimes we would give them gas cards and food cards to go along with that. Great. Kind of like, you know, not only are you going, but we're also going to sponsor or ensure that you have the fuel to get up and back. I like that. Oh, haircuts. What about haircuts? Our judge requested this specific to include incentives, but we were denied. Shanna. Stephanie, gift card for haircuts. And personal shout out and welcome to Stephanie. She's a brand new coordinator for Fort Peck, and I'm excited to see her on our OLE and look excited to work with her. Youth personal balance tool is a great way to explore your youth goals and then match these goals with like-minded incentives. Medicine wheel based. Thank you, Aaron. Awesome. Oh, really great input. So part 2 of our chat is, do we think that these rewards and prizes will motivate our youth? Christine says sports gear. Yeah, especially now with a lot of school sports starting and a lot of families not having the resources to buy the football spikes and the pads and all of the gear and the soccer pads that they need on their legs. All those things are all excellent incentives for our youth. Anyone else? Do we think these rewards will motivate our youth? One person said, absolutely, for sure. Bowling, Missy say, bowling and games should, oh yeah, bowling's still hot. I often take my youth to get Dutch Brothers. Give us times to chat on different settings. Yes, that's a good idea. Just have a coffee with them or whatever the youth are drinking nowadays. Coffee shop gift cards. Awesome. Oh yeah, I think you're all getting the gist of it now. I like this. Aaron says, reach out to your local Johnson O'Malley program to see if they can cover educational expenses, sports equipment, things of that nature. Boba drinks, yeah, although I've never had one and I have no idea what it is. Haley Terry says very much so to coffee shops. Excellent. That's great. I see we're all on the same wavelength, even though I don't know what a boba tea is or boba drink is, but and Jenny says, yes, we've also had luck getting some day passes for the gym and movie cards. One of the things that came to my mind when Judge P was talking was we had a community that would actually give the family during powwow, they would give them a free booth. So they wouldn't have to pay the rent for that booth so that they could have a vendor booth of food. And they were allowed to make as much money as they could during the duration of the powwow. And some of that was pretty substantial. Stephanie says movie cards. Excellent. Well, this is what we're looking for. We're looking for this engagement. We're looking for this dialogue. We're looking for this connection back and forth. And that's the whole idea behind this. Sketchbooks and materials to draw. Yes. That's really a good point. Let me go back to, I think that was Mark Smith. Yeah, sketchbooks. That was one of the things when we had kids that were doing a lot of graffiti, and they told us that, yeah, well, I like to draw. And we said, well, if you like to draw so much, why don't we just give you some sketch pads? I forgot what they call them. There's a specific name that taggers will have, a piece book. It's called a piece book. And in that piece book, what they do is they are constantly working on their craft. And instead of having them sprayed on the wall, we would have them do it in a piece book in pencil because they like doing their pieces in pencil. So we would buy them piece books and pencils. And that really did cut down the graffiti in the community because it was more personalized. Jenny says, I have to jump off. Well, we're sorry that you had to do that. So, okay, so let's continue. All excellent input, all great components. We love hearing from you. So let's go on to our next slide.
Okay, this is me. This is literally me.
Literally.
On the right-hand side is a picture of me when I was probably about, I don't know, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Okay, maybe younger. That's my grandma Helen, my Hopi grandmother. And this is about the time I started at the Hopi Day School on the Hopi Reservation. And We're going to talk about token-based microeconomies, but it turns out they were using a token-based microeconomy on us at the Hopi Day School. So the way it worked is we were like first and second graders. And the teacher asked our moms and our grandmothers to make us each a little apron with big pockets. And so Monday through Thursday, we wore these aprons while we were working in school. And every time we were like busy doing our work or getting a good score on our work, the teacher would walk by and put a red chip on our table and we would put it in our pocket. And then on Friday, they had a store and it had like books and toys and dolls and other prizes in it. And it had a little price tag on each thing. And if you had enough chips, you could buy toys and prizes out of the store on Friday. And so it was really motivating when you're like 6 years old to do this. And we really look forward to Fridays and we got some really cool toys. This is how we learn to read because they incentivized the work, the baby steps it took to get us to read. And to this day, I'm not sure if they were doing a research project on us at Hopi Day School. And I keep trying to find the research to see if we were a site. But this thing worked and it pulled in our parents and our grandmothers to be a part of it. And it made it kind of like a family activity. This is a token-based microeconomy. It's where you choose a token, in this case, little red chips, and it's some kind of fake currency. And then you create a store with prizes in them and you put a price on things. And then the young people collect the tokens. You need some way of keeping track of tokens. They can be points in a youth healing to wellness court. We had an apron with a pocket and we put all the chips in there until Friday. In a youth healing to wellness court with points as the token, you have a little checkbook and you keep track of all your points until you spend them with a little check. So this is how token-based microeconomy works. Let's go to the next slide.
By the way, there is for that token-based microeconomy, if you go to Amazon to look for all of the little knickknacks that you're looking for, is the charts and everything, it's all available. And in fairness, I did have a picture of me riding a T-Rex, but it was taken out of the slide group. So
Next time, Chris. Next time.
yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the textbook version of how you create a microeconomy in a youth healing to wellness court. So, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a no-brainer that looks complicated. I'll give you both sides of it. So, number one, what is your token? Is it little red chips? Is it points? Is it Monopoly money? You decide, what your token will be. And then you have to make a list of the behaviors that will be incentivized. What do they get the little red chips for when you watch them? So here's an example of a grid from a juvenile drug court. So they're giving points as their token. And if a youth attends all their treatment sessions, they get in a week, they get 2 points. If they attend school all week with no absences, they get 2 points. If they show up for their drug testing, they get 2 points. And then look down here at the bottom. If they get a negative result on their drug test, they get 10 points. And if they keep doing it, the points go up and up. So you can see how like carefully they're meting out or giving out the points here. The more points for the bigger accomplishments. And then the third thing here is you have to assign a value to the desired behaviors. And that's essentially what they're doing with the points. Some behaviors, like getting 200 negative drug tests, is worth 35 points. Some desired behaviors are much of a much higher value than others over time. And these charts and tables, they're all in the publication that we can send you after the webinar. Okay, let's look at the next one. So we're still looking at a microeconomy here, a token-based microeconomy. Now you need a reward menu. It's the price list. If you want a reward, how much is it going to cost you? What's the price tag? Well, if you want to leave court early, it's going to cost you 5 points. If you want a $5 gift card to the boba tea shop, it's going to cost you 10 points. If you want to extend your curfew for 1 day for 3 hours on Friday night because you have a date, that's going to cost you 30 points. So you need to make a list of the prizes and how much they cost. Put a price tag on it. Now, once you've got your whole scheme figured out, you're going to write it up as a policies and procedures section in your policies and procedures manual so that all of your team members know how it works and everybody's on the same page. Like you don't want one person giving out red chips and another person giving out monopoly money. You want to make sure you're all using the same system. And then you're going to describe it in a very family and youth-friendly way in the participant handbook. Make it look fun, make it look clear, make it look easy. And make sure your policies match your handbook information. Okay, any questions? Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide then. All right. Now, there's always a bureaucratic side to this. All this fun and reinforcement is going on with the economy, the token-based economy, but somebody has to keep track of stuff. And this is usually your coordinator and the team coordinating with the team. So how the heck do you keep track of stuff? It's important to track everything week to week, week by week, and then over all the weeks that they're in the Youth Healing to Wellness Court. And so you'll need a little spreadsheet, which we show you an example of here. This is week 1, and it goes Monday through Sunday. And you'll see on the left-hand side, there's categories. Treatment, are they attending treatment meetings or sessions? School, are they attending school every day? Are they showing up for drug testing? And you'll notice this tracking sheet is not tracking everything we're incentivizing, but it's kind of catching the key things that we want to really keep track of to indicate their progress in wellness court. And every time they show up for their session that they're required to do, they get a little 1. So on Monday, that 1 means they showed up to their session. And then you'll see a column that says needed. That column is telling you how many times they needed to go to that session per week. So if it's school, they have to go to school 5 days a week. So they had 5 needed and they get a 1 every time they show up. And you can see this kid showed up 1, 2, 3, 4 times that week. They missed school on Wednesday. So they needed 5, but they got 4. And so they're at 80% attendance. This is very helpful to help your coordinator track what they're actually accomplishing each week. Why? Because if you don't know what they did, you can't give them an incentive to encourage them to keep doing it, right? So there's a admin burden on us in the system to notice when they're doing something right and then to reward it. Okay, there's another point to make on this. When we are looking at their progress, we always think we're looking within the week. But we should remember to look at their progress over all the weeks before the week we're in. Because they may mess up this week, but for the last 4 weeks, they've been improving, and we want to be sure and recognize it. And so you should be doing a little spreadsheet like this for every week. And every week when you meet with your team, you look at all of the spreadsheets for that kid. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, there's one more kind of reward system that I wanted to talk about today. And I'm kind of speaking to the judges and the lawyers here. There is this Youth Healing to Wellness Court status hearing called a rocket docket. And what it is it's a way of conducting business in a status hearing that uses incentives and recognizes kids who are doing an outstanding job this week. So this week, this kid had 100% negative drug tests. This week, this kid had perfect attendance in school and in treatment. This combo of three things makes them an outstanding kid in this week. So what do they win this week in the status hearing? If all the youth are coming to the hearing together in the program, they get to go home first. They don't have to stay for the whole hearing. And maybe they even win a little prize for meeting this. And it's a way of I don't know if it's like rewarding the high achievers, but you're highlighting the outstanding behavior in that week in court. And it's a different kind of court process. Let's go to the next slide. It's also continuing on Rocket Docket. Okay, so remember how I said that blue rectangle of a Youth Healing to Wellness Court court docket is not like the old adversarial court process. It's a different kind of court process. Well, as you can see, you never do rocket docket in a criminal trial. That would just be weird, and the attorneys would be filing lawsuits. So it's a completely different kind of process in therapeutic court. Some of the things you can do in your therapeutic court rocket docket are here 1 through 4, and I'll talk about them. So the first is you want to list the special requirements that get a reward. And so you want something visual in the courtroom. So maybe you make a little poster of the rocket and a little poster of the 3 magical things that you can do as a youth to get on the rocket docket. And that's in the courtroom on the wall during the hearing. And then the judge has a conversation with the youth, and he or she says, "Why do you think you get to be on the rocket docket?" And the youth looks at the poster and says, "Because I had 100% negative drug test. I had perfect attendance." And the judge should make sure that he or she is reinforcing that the youth understands why they're on the rocket docket. And the other thing is that the judge can follow this up with strength-seeking conversations. So they can focus on the youth's goals from wellness planning. They can ask them about their strengths, their hopes, their interests, their vision about what they want for themselves, and how this is moving them in that direction. So the judge is actually talking about the goals and tying everything back to progress to the youth's goals. And then the last piece of rocket docket advice is that, hey, maybe we don't give out sanctions in court. Maybe what we do is we refer anything sanctionable, not anything. I mean, there are some things that can be sanctioned in a separate court hearing. But for the most part, you could send the youth back to a follow-up case management meeting with the case manager. And then the case manager could say, let's talk about why you didn't get an incentive this week. Or let's talk about how this behavior is getting in the way of your goals, and have that strength-seeking conversation with them in a case management meeting instead of as a sanction by a judge in court in front of all the other youth. Because we know it backfires with youth. Their brains don't work like adult brains. So this is just a radically different kind of court process. It's strength-based, it's furthering goals, it's building a relationship between the judge and the youth. It's a different kind of experience for the youth, and hopefully it's promoting progress in their goals and their life. Okay, so we've given you the big picture here. We've talked about fishbowl, we've talked about token-based economy and rocket docket. You can use one of these, you can use them in combination, and you can be creative with them as well. Okay, let's go to our final slide, I believe, and talk about our lessons learned. So there's really three big lessons learned here. The first is that this whole model was designed for a certain kind of youth who are court involved and have a substance use issue in that crossover. And then the second big lesson is there is a connection between effective incentives and goals. And if you didn't do any goal setting in case planning, you have no goals to work with, and your incentives, I don't know, it's like shooting a gun in all directions, but not at the target. And maybe that's not the best example, but no goals, no target. You need the goals to make the incentives actually work the way you want them to work. And then third, you also need all the administrative infrastructure, right? And that is the larger protocol, the incentives and sanctions protocol. And we know a lot of that is forms and tables, and it's in the publication that we'll share with you. And then finally, you're going to tailor all of this to your culture, your tribal law, the resources you do or don't have, and given the expertise of the people on your team. And it's going to be creative and unique to your tribe and your youth healing to wellness court. And the most important thing is that it works to motivate youth. That's the, if you ever have a final question about how you should do it, ask them, will it work with you? Do you feel motivated by this? What is your input? Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Look at that. I made it 1 minute before the deadline and hand it back over to Ashley.
Thanks, Judge Pat. All right, everyone, we are 1 minute till the end of this. We would love for your evaluation. Andy's going to go ahead and launch it. So it is anonymous. This just helps us do better in the future. And also because we are grant funded, we have to report back and let them know how we are doing as a TA as well. So please, please take this evaluation. We'll also email it to you if you've already, you have to jump off. So thank you, Andy. And we'll do just 1 more minute for the evaluation. And thank you everyone for participating in the evaluation. It really does help us. And Christine, thank you for joining, and everyone who's joined here. Yes, it was such a great time in spending time with you and getting to know you, and the questions were fantastic. And Andy, let me know where we're at with the evaluation.
We are currently at about now 91% responses. And maybe just about 30 more seconds and we should be able to wrap up.
Perfect.
And we're at 100%. Thank you all.
Amazing, everyone. Thank you. And we'll go on to the next slide, and we'll share some quick resources for you. Also, please let us know if you need any support. We as a team are TAs under Youth Healing Wellness Court, and we have many, many resources. You are not to do this alone. We'll walk you through it. It will take time, like Erin had mentioned. Erin is one of our TAs on our team, and we all have our expertise, right? So if I don't know it, I will reach out to someone who does. And the resources will be listed on the PowerPoint. You'll get that after this webinar. And next slide, please. So So you could find more about our resources by visiting tribalyouth.org, or you could give us a call and you could request TA. When you go to tribalyouth.org, there is a request TA section. So I know that some of you may not be our current grantees, but we hope that you will be in the future. And we're just going to end here. Thank you everyone for joining us and serving our youth. Yes, we have a little tree here. It takes time for growth. I was thinking earlier about this image, and then it clicked on me. I clicked it. I thought, oh, I should have had a baseball mitt. I was my son's t-ball coach all season. I said, he point and throw, and the ball's just going every which direction. And when it just clicks, and before you know it, he could throw the ball right to me. And so it takes time. It will click. It will work. We have faith, and call us if you need us. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Great to see everyone. Bye-bye.